Shalom, beloveds of the King. Here we are again today. Praise Abba Father that we're going to continue this message of this prophetic insight for the timing that we're in this time. As the Father really wants to be able to, as I started this message last week, and as I really came to the place of where Abba just started impressing on my heart that I need to start looking deeper into the things that He's trying to reveal for this hour, and I don't always understand. I'll be honest with you, I don't always get the picture. He speaks something and then, so what happened was, when I received, it was about 2 weeks ago, I received this little video, I think it was from my friend Brett, from this woman. Her name is Vicky Erlang. Anyway, she was giving a warning about a tsunami that is about to hit South Africa. She speaks about it specifically being along the west coast, and she's giving this prophetic warning. And then she speaks about how she's also warned, the Father gave a warning about the knives and the fires, but she didn't warn anybody. And the Father even gave her the day that the fires were going to start, and she didn't warn anybody. And it was only when I was listening to this video that was sent to me, this link, this YouTube link, and as I went into it, that then the Father started to remind me, but wait a second, you need to pick up your journals, because there are specific dreams that you have received that now is the timing. If we are in the time of restoration of all things, if we are in the time of the third day, then there's many things. If Father had me inside the garden tomb, having to seriously declare specific prophetic things for the timing that we're in, then now's the time for me to look and see what has He been saying over the last couple of years that I really needed to look into. And so that's when I started having to sit down and go and pick up my journal when the Father said, I do things in cycles of 7. And I thought, okay, so let me go look and see what was in my 2010 journal. And it's like I said to you, I already had my 2010 journal out when the Father had told me in 2010, when He told me to release the priests at Shavuot. In 2007, He had told me, gather the priests on Mount Zion. So this is when I started picking up my journal, and it was only from that vision, that dream that woman had of this tsunami, that then the Father reminded me that He also gave me a dream about a tsunami. But I want to start going further back, which is interesting because Father told me to then go pick up my 2007 journal. And it's interesting, it's 10 years since He gave 2007 journal, and 10 is very much a number of completion and spiritual order. It's divine order. I mean, we see what Father did with Noah being the 10th generation from Adam, and when the Father completed a cycle and started a new cycle. Then we see when the Father completed a cycle with Abraham. Do you know that from Noah to Abraham was 10 generations? And then from Abraham, He started a new cycle, started a new order. So it's interesting because He told me to go and then look back in 2007. So before I start going into these dreams, which I'm going to start going into, and with scripture and everything attached to these dreams, and, really starting to bring this together, and, all of a sudden, as I've started to look at this, especially over the last week or two, as I've really started to pick up these journals, I am being blown away. Believe you me, because scriptures attached to it, things attached to it, it's like, now is a timing, now is a season. Go back into your journals is what I say to you. Go back into those things. Go look at the things that the Father has spoken over your lives. Start looking at it. Start to pray. Everything that comes from Him. There's a time now for the restoration to take place, for the third day, for resurrection. But we must be extremely careful. And this is something that I have done. I've had to turn around and say, Father, every prophetic word that I received that was not of you, everything that was not of you, will you silence those voices, bring it under your authority, silence it with the blood of Yeshua Mashiach that has been given to us to be able to be an authority against anything that will come to bring the hay, the rubble and the straw in our lives that is not from Him. Because remember, there's a lot of prophesying that is out there as opposed to prophesying. And there's been many lying spirits that have maybe spoken things over our lives that was not of the Father's will, that was not of the Father's mouth. So I have made sure that I've come before the Father and really brought every single prophetic word. That is why I'm very nervous when someone wants to come and just give me a prophetic word. Because, you know what? I have had many things over my life that is not of the Father. And so that's why I make sure that I say, Father, only that which is of you shall remain. And whatever the hay, the rubble and the straw is, that He will remove. That He will silence those voices, that they will not stick to me like blackjacks. That's the way I look at it, is that those things are like the blackjacks that stick in my garden. The weeds that need to be weeded out. I want the plants that He has planted, and everything that He has not planted, that He would uproot. And we're going to get into that. So, let us start in prayer. Abba Yahuwah, I just want to come before your throne of grace, and I just want to thank you for this day, my Father. Thank you for this season. Thank you for this timing that we are in, as truly darkness is increasing all around us. And the more of the things that I hear, the more it truly grieves my spirit. And if it grieves my spirit, I can just imagine what it does you. Abba, I truly pray that you will have a remnant in this hour that's going to raise up. I truly pray that you will start to work in the hearts of your people in this hour that we're in, to give us ears to hear what it is that you want to speak in the hearts of your people in this timing. As Father, there's never been an hour such as this when truly people now need to start to hear that which you want to say. Father, I pray that this is not about what man thinks or what man does, but this is about you. This is when you're going to come to a time of when I see Saul's kingdoms coming to an end, and you are going to raise up your Davids that have been in hiding for so long. As David needed to wait until Saul had to die for him to finally take his place and become king. Yet he was anointed so long before. Father, so many of us, you have spoken word over us, and we looked at this and we think, oh, how's this ever going to be possible? That it doesn't even look like it could possibly be possible. But I pray, Father, that everything that you have spoken that needs to resurrect in this time, in this hour, in this season, that pertains to our lives, that pertains to your kingdom, that pertains to what needs to be done in this timing, where the darkness and the things of the evil kingdom is increasing, and they know exactly what they're doing, and they're putting their plans together. Father, I pray that you would start to put your plans together, your kingdom plans together, and raise up a set-apart priesthood that would come forth in this time and do the greatest exploits on the earth in this hour than has ever been done. Father, not because they need to be seen, not because they need to be heard, not because they need to be known, but because they are just humble servants in your kingdom, and their heart's desire and everything about them is to serve you and your kingdom, to be seeing your kingdom coming on earth, to prepare the way for the coming King, to prepare the way for you, Yeshua HaMashiach, so that you may come, take your place, and reign and rule. And Father, I truly pray that you would open up the eyes of our understanding, that you would open up our spiritual ears, so that we may really come forth in this time to know what it is that is upon your heart in this hour. Thank you, Abba, that you open up these dreams, even if I share them and there's people that maybe need to see deeper in it that I cannot see. Father, raise them up. As I can give you I can only give what it is that you've shown, but sometimes we see in part. But as a body, we can all come together and see in the fullness. So I thank you, Father, for the body that you're raising up now, that in this body there's only one head, but we are different limbs. Help us to be able to finally get onto the same page, so that we can be led by you and you alone. I praise and I thank you, Father, that I commit myself to you right now. And I ask you, Father, speak to my mind, speak through my lips, the very things that you want to speak in this hour. In Yahushua's name I pray this. Amen and amen. Amen. So, I really just want to share, in 2007, interesting, it was also in Mount Zion. It was at Beulah Park. And this was on the 20th of February. On the 20th of February, we came together for an African leaders meeting in Mount Zion. And, you know, in February is normally a month of where I set myself apart for Abba. And there is a timing that I have done this since I got saved, where leading up to my, I would say, my birthday of being saved, 40 days leading up to that day, I go into a 40-day fast to basically set myself apart and really hear what it is that Abba wants to do in my life, and whatever it is that he wants to show me, and also preparing myself, because normally this fast is around the time just before we would enter into the new year of normally March, like, you know, towards the end of March, depending on the calendar. And so that prepares me for that as well. So it's just seems interesting how when I go into these journals, it's a lot of times in this timing of when I'm fasting, that the Father then really gives me these visions or dreams or whatever it is. And in this 2007, like I said to you, I'd been invited to an African leaders meeting at Beulah Park, and we were there, and a lot of leaders from different denominations and different churches and different parts of Africa gathered together to come together as a body and be able to hear what it was that Father wanted to do in Africa. And, people were sharing word and everything, and, and I was there. And right in the beginning, when we were still in time of praise and worship, I had a very specific vision. And in this vision, I was standing there, and all of a sudden I saw the globe of like the world spinning on the Father's finger. And this globe was like, how you see those when we were at school, how we used to see the world like on an axis, and it would spin, and then you would stop it in whatever country. Anyway, I saw this globe spinning on the Father's finger, the globe of the world. And as it stopped on the continent of Africa. And all of a sudden I see the continent of Africa, and then I see the Father starting to blow on this continent of Africa. And as he's blowing, the more he's blowing, there is trees coming out and shrubs coming out and plants coming out and things coming out. It's like the more he's blowing, the more things are being pulled out. It's like, when you see this hurricane that starts to take place, and you see this hurricane coming, and how everything just starts to lift up into the air, and it's, swinging around. And these are the things I'm seeing coming. As this wind is blowing, these things are coming out of this globe. And sure. And then all of a sudden, the vision, I came out of the vision. And I said, Father, what is this? I said, what are you showing me? And there and then, a scripture dropped into my spirit. And I just heard him say, Matthew 15, verse 13. Now, I have no idea what Matthew 15, verse 13 was going to say. No idea. But I went and I picked up my Bible, and I went and looked at Matthew 15, verse 13. And Matthew 15, verse 13 says, but he answering said, every plant which my heavenly Father has not planted shall be uprooted. And this is now what I was seeing in this continent of Africa. Every plant not planted by him, everything that he did not ordain, everything that he has not planted is going to be uprooted. And so there's been times, especially in times of prayer, when Father has reminded me of this very vision, and he starts to say to me, uproot, 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 uproot. And then I start to pray specific things as he's telling me people need to be uprooted. Certain leaders will be uprooted. Certain things will be uprooted because he's going to uproot. So right at the beginning of the conference, it was about the fact that Father is going to need to uproot. Because everything that he did not plant is going to be uprooted. And that's why I'm saying, every word, every plant, remember, you are made up of a garden. You are made up of the dust of the earth, which means you are a piece of soil. And everything sown in that soil will produce after its kind, because whatever seed you're going to sow into that soil is going to produce after its kind. So in this body of ours, we are going to produce after whatever kind of soil, we are the soil, whatever kind of seed is going to be sown in this piece of ground that we are, is going to come forth. And that is why I have to pray and say, Father, there's seed that has been sown in this piece of ground, of this lump of soil, which is my body, that has been declared and spoken over my life, that is not of you. Uproot, please, Abba Father. Whatever word that has been spoken over my life, that is part of the weeds that is growing there, that is preventing your purposes and your plans of your trees, of your plants that you have rooted, that's suffocating it. Have you seen a garden if it's not weeded? Do you see that those plants eventually suffocate? Because you know what? Those weeds, it's amazing. Those weeds tend to grow much faster than our little plants. So take a nice little veggie garden, or you just want to put a nice herb garden. Boy, when you look again, those weeds are sown in there quicker than what we didn't even sow them. But boy, they get sown there. And if we don't pull those weeds out, go look at houses that have been abandoned. There might be a beautiful rose bush, but what is it surrounded by eventually? So many weeds that you can't even barely see the beauty of that rose bush. And so, what Father is saying in this hour is that He's going to start uprooting. Everything that's not of Him needs to be uprooted. Whether it be in your life, whether it be in your business, whether it be in your home, doesn't matter. He wants to uproot. Because He needs to restore. So there's got to be an uprooting for Him to replant. And the thing is that we've got some things in our lives that He has planted, but there's a lot of things in our lives that He did not plant. And those are, you'll see, I've got a little veggie garden there, my goodness, I don't even know, it's not basically, it's just got a little bit of I planted some tomatoes and I've got a little bit of mint and things like that, and I planted some basil, but my goodness, all of a sudden I see this, I really don't like peri things. I really do not like, a pepper plant that is, a peri plant. I definitely didn't plant that in my garden. But believe it or not, it's gone and put itself there. There's a seed that's gone and sown there, and now it's come there. And there was one that was at the bottom of my garden. It was, we were given a small little one, and Elsie's dad gave her this little peri plant, and she went and sowed it in the garden and the other end of the garden. But now in my nice little veggie little place that I've got, this little peri plant came and grew there, and I tell you something, I never planted it there, but a bird must have brought it in its mouth, dropped the seed there, and it grew. So how many seeds have been planted in your little garden that's been planted there, but you didn't sow it there? Somebody else has sown it there, and it's growing. And it's producing a harvest. And some of those things might be suffocating the very things that the Father wants to be able to bring in your life. So this was the first vision that I saw, was the first vision of this globe. And then Him dropping in my spirit the scripture, Matthew 15 verse 13. Every plant not planted, every plant which my heavenly Father has not planted shall be uprooted. So may this be a prayer that we start to pray. Father, whatever is there in my garden that you did not root, that you did not plant. Remember, we have been in church. And we have had a lot of prophetic words spoken over our lives. Because, this is the known thing to be done when you are in the charismatic church, isn't it? Everybody goes around giving prophetic word. And there might be things that have been spoken over your life that did not come from the heart of the Father. And those things could just be standing in the way, as it may be opposition to what is the true thing that is spoken in your life. So we need to come before Abba and start to say, uproot. Uproot every plant that is not being planted by you. Then when we got to the end of the conference, so this is something that we need to understand is going to need to be done in our continent. South Africa, remember, we are the foundation. of this continent of Africa, just in case people didn't realize. But I'm about to get to that now. So then Father gives me a vision. At the close of the conference, I get another vision. So as we were closing off in prayer, I saw another vision. And this vision now, I see the continent of Africa again. And all of a sudden, I see this angel. But this angel is pure gold. He was exactly the same kind of angel that is covering the Ark of the Covenant. It was gold. He was gold. And this angel stood with his feet on the most southern tip of this continent, of South Africa, is South Africa. And his feet was there in the Cape. His feet was there. And then his wings covered right to the top, there by Ceuta, the very top part of Africa, right at the top by Ceuta. And this archangel, gold archangel, covered this entire continent. And then above the archangel, I saw this white flag waving. And then I said to the Father, I said, what is this? And the Father started to share with me that the archangel is the glory. Africa is called to carry his glory. Africa is a continent that is called to carry the glory of the Father. And it's going to start in southern Africa, right until the top of Africa, that he will cover this continent with his glory. The white flag represented the purity, the holiness, the righteousness that will reign in this continent. It will be righteous. It has to be righteous for it to be able to carry your glory, the Father's glory. So once everything has been uprooted, that is not the Father's way, not the Father's will, in this continent, it's going to be a continent that is going to carry his glory, and it's going to be a continent where there will be purity, holiness, righteousness. Because that's what he showed me that this vision meant. And so these are two of the visions that the Father showed me already in 2007. And, I only started with my journal in 2010. I started looking at the dream because when that woman gave the dream of the tsunami, I went to the 2010 journal because I remember it was in 2010 that he gave me the vision of the tsunami. But I forgot about my 2007 journal and already these two visions that the Father had given me that was very prophetic for Africa and very prophetic for South Africa. Because the Father showed me that from South Africa, I saw like balls of fire. What the Father showed me, because I used to, especially at this time, from the time basically I got saved, from 2002, I got saved 2000, so from 2002, I started going to Mount Zion a lot, to Beulah Park, and this is where I used to spend a lot of my time. And we used to meet people from all the nations there, because this is a place where it's a mountain. It doesn't belong to any specific denomination, and it was open for people that would come from all different nations, and we would gather together there in prayer. And I remember the one time we were in prayer, and in that prayer room, we were people from all different places of Africa. There were Nigerians there were Ethiopians there were Congolese there were Malawians there were Zimbabweans there was, us from South Africa, and there were people there from different nations of Africa. And it was interesting how Father was bringing them to South Africa. And we want to get so irritated sometimes with our alien brothers and sisters that have come into our country and infiltrated our land. But Father has had a purpose in bringing these foreigners into our nation. As much as we don't understand, that's why Father said to Israel, be careful not to come up against the foreigner, because you too were a foreigner in a foreign land. And Father has always got a purpose in what He's doing. And when the Father said, Father started to show me that there's a purpose why He's bringing these people. Because you see, this is one nation that truly, it's called a rainbow nation, but it's so funny because it really is a rainbow nation, because in this nation, we've got people from so many different nations of the world gathered in this nation alone. That's very interesting. And isn't it amazing? If we are the very foundation of the continent of Africa, think about it. What is the foundation of where the feet of the archangel? Where was the feet of the archangel? The feet of the archangel was in southernmost tip of Africa, was in southern tip, was on the south side of this continent. And who are the people of the south side? It's South Africa. And this is where the feet were. So we are going to be from here called to go. Go to where He's got for us to go. To be able to take the truth of His word. And what's interesting is, they come and they gather here. Because can I tell you something? If you don't get the foundation of a building right, the rest of the building wouldn't stand, isn't it? That's why Yeshua said you need to build your house on a solid foundation. Because if you do not build your house on a solid foundation, the house is not going to stand. So at the end of the day, this continent has to get its foundation right. And the foundation is this very country of South Africa. That's the foundation that's carrying this continent. And if we understand our mandate, we understand what Father wants to do with the rest of the countries that is in this foundation of this continent, because that archangel's feet were at the bottom and it covered the entire continent to the top. But the word that the Father said to me is that He's going to use South Africa as the very foundation. When this country gets this foundation right, we will then be able to send out these fireballs, because this is what I saw that day that I was on Mount Zion, and we were praying with all these people from the different nations. I saw them coming into this country, receiving the truth of His word, and then being sent out like fireballs back into their countries and preaching these truths of His word into the continent of Africa. And then from there, His glory was going to go forth into the other nations, specifically like into a continent of Europe, which at this point in time, isn't it interesting? This is something that I always preach when I'm amongst, like I've had to preach in various different, African churches and been amongst African people. And Father's taken me to Congo, and He's taken me to Togo and to Benin and to Cameroon, and I've gone into Africa and Ethiopia. And Father, especially when I preach amongst like the Ethiopian people, and sometimes when I'm among the Ethiopian people, it's not just Ethiopian people. If you go preach in Yeovil, you are in the nations. Believe you me, go and walk Yeovil and you will see the nations gathered in Yeovil, because they've come from all over the nations, and that Yeovil itself is churches there from just about different places of Africa that is gathered there. So if I go preach in an Ethiopian church, there's people that have come from other places that will be listening. And I will say to them, you know what is amazing? Father is going to use this continent of Africa, because you know what I find? What I find amongst my African brothers and sisters, I find a worshipping spirit. They truly are a people that love to worship. Man, they can worship for 2-3 hours. I have never seen worship like I saw worship when I was in Congo. I saw people that were so hungry to hear the word of the Father that they would arrive at 9 o'clock in the morning, sitting on sand, in the hot sun of like 40 degrees, almost 38 degrees. And they would be there until 1 o'clock in the morning. But they would arrive at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they would be there until 1 o'clock in the morning, sitting on the sand, just wanting to hear a word, just wanting to hear someone speak a word to be able to bring them life. We do not understand the hunger and the thirst that is out there of people who truly are looking for a true word that will come from the Father. But now we want to get this gospel. That is a gospel that's going to come and infiltrate Africa to bring them into what? Africa is a continent that's known what it's like to be in poverty. Africa has been known as a continent that was known as the dark continent because of the darkness that was here. But the Father brought His light, and the light was to be able to bring people into truth, to be able to make a difference. And you know what is amazing? When I just traveled now, when I was in Europe for a month, now March into April, when I was in Europe, believe you me, the dark continent now is definitely Europe. I would say they were first, because I always say to them, you know, those who are first will be last, and those who are last will be first. Guess what? We were last. We were lost, but now we will be first. Europe was first, and they are currently lost. Because Europe right now is so dark. It doesn't need the gospel at all. You speak to young people like I did when I was in a hostel in Geneva. You speak to a young person like I had to speak to a young person, and let me tell you something. They have no need of alua. They have no need of, you talk to them about God and they look at you funny. What do you mean? Like this 25-year-old girl looked at me when I was telling her, you know, you live in my country, you live in South Africa, you know what it's like to pray. She looked at me foreign. What do you mean pray? She'd never even heard any such thing. Pray? What are you talking about? She thought I was foreign. She was looking at me like an alien looking at me because I'm speaking a language that she doesn't understand. I'm telling her we're praying to the Father, and we had drought, and there were people praying, and through the prayer, Father answered, and within 3 months, our dam went from 20-something% to over 100%. That is the Father and His grace. And she's looking at me like, what are you talking about? She says, wow, I can believe in your passion, I see it, but I cannot believe in your God. And I looked at her, and she said to me, you know what? When I was a little girl, my parents would go to church. I mean, what church? I said to her, what church? What, the Catholic Church? Shame. Religion. I don't know about that. That's all that you got was a bit of religion. You wouldn't really get to know the true creator of the universe by just going with your mom and your dad to church on a Sunday. Believe me, ask me. I've been there. That wasn't going to give you much. And she says, but then she went to school and then she discovered that there's evolution. You know? I said, oh, so everything came into being through a big bang. That's how it came in. Big bang, a big bang, and it all came into being. And we come from apes because it's all about evolution. I said, wow, I don't know. I don't know who causes the sun to rise every day. I don't know who causes the sun to set every day. I don't know who causes the rain to come and the snow to come and everything that's beautiful in your life that you see, creation. A little bird that is inside a little nest when a storm comes and yet not even the little egg falls out. I don't know who does that. I don't know what kind of evolution does that. Wow, I don't know about that. But she was listening to me, saying to me, I don't understand what you say. As I'm trying to talk to her about her Creator, and she's looking at me like I'm foreign. And then I said to her, you know what? You might not know him, it's okay. But there's going to come a day. You see, in Europe, you have no need of him. You have everything at your fingertips. My goodness, you're enjoying your life. Look at this. Everything is so organized. Everything is so wonderful. You know, you don't need to worry and look over your shoulder and be worrying about that, but don't worry. I said, you don't live like I live. I mean, if I just drive out of I don't even need to drive out of my doorstep. I just need to be in my house, and I need to know that I've got my Father to protect me. Because I don't know what's going to happen from today to tomorrow. Because people in this country live in fear. This is a country that has got the highest rape statistics in the world. It's like in my country. They will kill you for just to steal your cell phone. You know, that's that simple. They will kill you to take your bicycle. This is the kind of place we come from. So guess what? We have had to learn to put our trust in our faith in a Creator of the universe, because He's the only one that's got my back. I can't be looking over my shoulder every 5 minutes. So therefore, I have to trust Him to know that He protects me. And when we go through difficulties in our nation, we go on our knees and we start to pray and we start to seek the very one who's the only one who's going to help us. You explain to me, how does a dam go from 22%, almost at 20%, when we were about to get mud and we were actually already being told that we were no longer going to have water in our taps? And then our dam is sitting at over 100%. How do you explain that? I don't know, she says to me. I said, evolutionists are not going to do that. That is called a miracle. And all she could say to me is that she could see my passion, that it was real. But to believe in what I believe, and I said to her, you don't need to believe. No, don't worry about it. You know what? Most people don't find Him in the good times. You know what? I didn't find Him when my life was going all good. Man, I was very successful, soaring in my life. I had no need of a Creator in my life. What did I have need of Him for? I was the God of my own life. I was my own little God. And I didn't have any need for Him. But there came a day when destruction came and came on my doorstep. And on that day, my knee had to bow. And I had to cry out to someone. And that's when I said to her, don't worry. You don't need to worry about that, knowing Him right now. But there's gonna come a day when destruction will knock on your door, and you will remember these words being spoken right now. And you will cry out to a living Creator who will meet you. And so you see, when I looked, and I don't even need to go any far. I've already told many people about just my family. How dark. I'm talking to my cousin who's 40 years old, who's never been given a Bible in her life. I'm talking to her about the Father, and she's looking at me like I'm mad. What are you talking about? I don't understand. You talk a language I don't understand. But boy, the more I talk to her, the more tears are running down her face, and she says, why can't I stop crying? And I say, because that's the Father touching you, that's why. But she couldn't understand. This is Europe. So today, they can be seen as a dark continent, because let me tell you something. The more persecution you have, the more difficulties you have, the more destruction there is in your life, the more you want to turn to a creator to be able to help you. That is why in Africa, like I always say to them, Father will look for the humble. Father will go get one broken, humble person. And from that broken, humble person, he can make something with them. And that is why there are many in this continent that we've been through war. There's been places, look at Uganda. How much war did they go through? Rwanda. And now they open to receive the gospel, to receive the truth of his word. Look at Ethiopia, with so much of the hunger that they went through. That's why you get Ethiopians they are on fire for the Father. They have a passion. They got no problem to be able to go to church and arrive there at 9 o'clock in the morning and leave by 6 o'clock in the afternoon. They got no problem to do that. But boy, in our churches, an hour and a half is already too long. We got a long way to go. We got a long way to go. And so that's why Father started to show me that this continent, he's going to raise up worshippers. And you know, who were the ones that went ahead to prepare the way for the coming king? Wasn't it the worshippers that went ahead? Wasn't it the worshippers that he sent out ahead that would prepare the way for the coming king? It's the worshippers. So it was just fascinating to me that in this continent of Africa, this is one thing. Worshippers. These people know how to worship. Man, I saw it. These people can be passionate about worship. They might not have the right theology, but they know how to worship. And you see, when you've got a humble heart that comes to him in that attitude, Father knows how to meet with you. Because he looks for a humble, contrite person. And then he wants to come and meet with those people. So in this nation, we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to get it right. We have a responsibility to make sure that we get our foundation right. Because if we don't get our foundation right, the rest of the continent is on this foundation. So if this foundation is corrupt, if this foundation is evil, if this foundation is everything that is an abomination to the Father, how are we going to be able to be that country that is supposed to be a light? There was another friend of mine that saw this lighthouse, and she saw this lighthouse from the most southern tip of Africa, where this lighthouse was going to shine a light into the rest of Africa. And this is what the Father had us do. This is what the Father had us do. When Father took us to Cape Agulhas, where we needed to go and deal with very specific things in Cape Agulhas, Father showed us that there was a vortex in Cape Agulhas and there was a vortex in Ceuta, and we needed to deal with these vortexes, because this was the very two things that was in the sea that was actually stealing the wealth of this continent and stealing everything from this continent. And so when we went there to Cape Agulhas, we went to the lighthouse there that's on the most southern tip of Africa. Father had me go to that lighthouse and proclaim that very word that my friend spoke, where she saw this lighthouse that was shining for the whole continent of Africa. And when Father got me to stand on top of the rock where the two oceans meet, and I had to stand on the most southern tip of Africa and really proclaim this vision. And then from there, Father took us to Ceuta. A few months later, 2-3 months later, Father took us to Ceuta, so that we had to cover the continent from the most southern tip of Africa, from Cape Agulhas right up to Ceuta, and cover it with His glory. And deal with the things that was holding back the vision that needed to be able to go forth. And so if we're going to need to come into purity, righteousness, holiness, then that means that something's going to need to happen and the Father's going to have to uproot. Because if I look at it right now, oh my goodness, there's a lot of uprooting that needs to be done before we can even get to the place of being able to become the continent of the glory, to reflect the glory of Yahuwah. We're not there yet. Nowhere near. And our country isn't even there yet either. And we have a responsibility as being the foundation. And this is what the Father revealed to me out of these two dreams. Then, in 2010, I'm now going to start then going into 2010 journal. In 2010, on the 11th of February, once again, I was now in my fast. I was again in my 40-day fast, and this was like basically 11 days or so into my fast. When that night of the 11th, I had two very prophetic dreams. And as a matter of fact, it was these two dreams that actually caused me to be able to go and look at my journal, and basically where Father said, I want you to release a message. And it was as I started to look at the dreams that's in this journal and prophetic things that are in this journal that caused me then to be able to get to the place of where Father then said to me, I need you to put a message together. I need you to start to be able to speak to my people. As there is very specific things I'm wanting to do. And there are things that's going to come. And you need to know. And the warnings are going to come, because if the Father's going to have to uproot. You know, I'm sorry, like I said to that woman in Europe, the only reason why you have no need to seek for your Creator is only because your life is too good and everything is so wonderful. But you know what? The plug is being removed there in that Europe. Great darkness is starting to come upon their lives. I mean, if you just look and see what's going on with the infiltration that's taking place of Islam. Islam is infiltrating Europe in a hectic way. And when they look again, the nice peace, calm, serenity that they had. Go and speak to my friend Gio in Germany. And he said, I cannot believe that this is the same country that I used to live in, where I had peace, where I could walk in the streets in peace. And now it's dangerous. You know, in Paris, when I was in Paris, now when we were 2 days in Paris, as Father had prophetic work that we needed to go do in Paris, I have never in my life experienced such an anti-Semitic spirit as what I did walking through the streets of Paris. How can you imagine that? I don't even feel that in Israel. I haven't even felt that in Turkey. I haven't even felt that in Jordan. And Turkey and Jordan being Islamic countries, I have never felt an anti-Semitic spirit like I felt in France. I have never felt fear like I felt in France. It was a darkness that was around me. I couldn't believe how many Muslims are in this city itself. Let me tell you something. If you are a Jew living there, not a chance. It's dangerous. And I felt that spirit, that anti-Semitic spirit. I felt it. Oh boy, I felt it. And I couldn't believe as I walked through the streets at night, all I could hear, I wasn't hearing French being spoken. A lot of the men that I saw on the street, they were all speaking this Arabic. And I thought, my goodness, is this Paris? Is this France? And I was horrified. And then on that Sunday, wow. I mean, this was like a weekend. Holidays have just begun. The school holidays, they just started having this like little break for like the Easter break that they were having for schools. And so that weekend, Paris was hectic. And Father took us there for 2 days. I couldn't wait to get out of there. Oh my goodness. What a dark place. I said, I can't believe that this is France. So it's going to get rough. And you see, when these things start to get worse, I mean, we've seen how many incidents in France already? How many things have we seen going on in England? How many things have we seen going on in Germany? And this is the so-called safe Europe. But what's going on? They're infiltrating. It's part of a bigger plan. And so, sometimes there's got to be a shaking before Father can bring, I mean, if you think about it, how do you, just take your own life for example. How is Father going to birth set apartness, purity, holiness, righteousness in you? Does it just come overnight? Oi, vavoy, that is not what it is at all. You're going to be taken through a bush backwards. You're going to be sliced. You're going to be cut open. You're going to go through a lot of trials and a lot of testing to get the evil out of you. So do you think we're just going to arrive and this country is just going to rise up and reflect His glory? I have you know, for you to reflect His glory means you need to come out and be purified as gold. Gold needs to go through a purification process 7 times at the hottest heat that you can think. So fire is about to come and it's going to heat up. It's not going to be Mickey Mouse. It's going to heat up. It's going to get intense before people are finally going to start listening. Because you know what? We still have it too easy. And we don't really want to bow the knee because it's still comfortable. But let me tell you something. Those fires, that's just the beginning. Those floods, that's just the beginning. Because it's about to get worse. Because if the Father wants to bring glory, He's going to have to intensify. 7 times we need to be purified. So that is a lot of testing. That is a lot of purification. So, on the 11th of February, I had these 2 very prophetic dreams. And what happened was, in my dream, my very first dream, I had this dream that I can't tell you, she saw it was the West Cape. I saw it was along the coast. Now, I can't tell you I just know it was along the coast. So can I tell you it was the south coast? Can I tell you it was the west coast? I don't know. All I know it was along the coast. And I saw a huge tsunami wave. So what happened was that I was standing and the next minute I just saw the waters receding. And then I started running. Because when I saw this, I said, something's coming here. And Father said, run. And I went up on top of this high place. And I was on top of this mountain. And as I was looking down, all of a sudden this tsunami wave came. And boy, it just took out as it came. It was huge. And it was just wiping out. People were running for their lives. People were trying to hide and get away from this thing. But this thing was just taking them out. And you know what was the funny thing of this wave? In the foam of the wave, like when a wave breaks, it's got like white foam. The funny thing is this foam was not white. This foam was like a grey, dark color, like a dark grey, as this foam was covering. And I woke up out of this dream with such a fright as I said, oh, great darkness is coming. Great darkness. And this was so horrified. I was horrified by this dream. I just started praying and I thought, oh no, horrible dream. Let me go back to sleep. So I go back to sleep and I have another dream. And now in this dream, I'm in a full-blown war. Just outside my house, all I know is I need to get to the shop. I need to go and get food. And all around me, bullets are flying. But there was something interesting about this dream, and this is the thing that is for many years, since this dream, for many years, I've carried this thing in my very spirit, is that even though all around me bullets were flying, somehow I was able to walk through this bullets and these things were not harming me, which was very strange. But I was walking over bodies. Everywhere I went, it was just bodies lying dead everywhere. It was terrible. And then I woke up out of that dream and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm having a terrible night here. What the heck is going on? And then I started praying, and the Father showed me that there's two parts of what will happen in this nation. There's certain parts in this nation that is going to be a tsunami wave that's going to come, that's going to take people out. And then for those more inland, like where I stay, it's going to be a war. There's going to be a war that's going to break out. And it's going to kill a lot of people. There's going to be a major war that's going to break out. And so I carried this dream within me, and I thought, Father, and this was in 2010. This was just when the elections, this was before the elections, this was in February. And I mean, at this time, I knew nothing about a Sina van Rensburg or Johanna Brandt or anything like that. I knew nothing about their visions or their dreams or their anything. And so I just started sharing this with a friend of mine, a prophet friend of mine, and I started sharing it with him. And he said, do you know, the things that you're seeing is very similar to things that have already been shown to people before. And then I started to get some of the stuff, and, it was weird because, sometimes in your spirit, you don't always see things, but in your spirit, you just know things. And so at that time, I started really warning people and telling them that, great destruction is coming. And you can imagine, since 2010, I've been telling people great destruction is coming. But they look at me and they say, you're right, Natalia, you've been saying this for how long? Because since 2010, as a matter of fact, I've already been seeing things already since 2005, and I mean, those journals I haven't even gone and touched, where Father was showing me about cities of refuge, where there were going to be specific places where people were going to have to go to for safety, because there was going to be destruction all around, and they were going to need places of refuge to come and find refuge in these places. And then Father started to show me how we really need to start to change our lives in certain ways, because we're going to be deprived of many things. And these were things that already then I have really had in my heart, that I was to set up cities of refuge. I mean, I saw a vision of a city of refuge since 2002. So I haven't always understood these things. But now, as we're getting to a time, I'm starting to be able to see how Father's been putting things together. And we really are in a prophetic time. And we really are in a prophetic season. And if this is the timing of restoration, and if this is the third day, and if this is the time of the resurrection, something's about to happen. He needs to purge. He's going to need to uproot so that he can replant. Because there's going to be uprooting that's going to need to take place. And this is something that I remember when he started to talk to me more about that dream that I had with the uprooting of the plants and everything. Father said many leaders, many leaders need to be uprooted. There's many things that need to be uprooted so that I can replant my purposes and my plans.